Welcome, Chrononauts, as we guide you through the experience of time travel using pop culture as our Garnier Malay. We will be your constants. I am Dez.
I'm Ari.
And I'm Scott.
And this is Time Pop. Today, in the present, we will be discussing the Spotify sensation Case 63 from the past. You will listen to it in the future, which is now.
Oh, that was the movie phone moment again, but deeper.
This movie or this experience was like movie phone.
Oh my God, we're genre bending.
Listening to these people talk into microphone recorder. Listening to Oscar Isaac and
Julianne Moore.
Hello? 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 If you can hear this, it's not too late. I return to warn you. This is Time Pop, a podcast that discusses time travel and pop culture. There are spoilers. I've seen the future, and nothing is sacred to these folks. Your past, present, and future are sure to be ruined. Even if you could go back in time, as I have, you will never forget what you are about to hear. You've been warned. This is Time Pop.
thank you very much. I just listened to it today. So I've listened to it twice casually over the last month. And then I listened to it today on 2 times the speed because I'd been listening to it driving around. And so I just wanted to remind myself of some notes. So listening to it in 2 times speed, I was like, oh yeah, Pegasus. Oh yeah, Garnier Malay. Oh yeah. So I could remember some talking points.
Great. Yeah, I didn't write down notes. Yeah.
So Scott.
Yes.
What do you think about, what do you call them, Ari? Podcasts. What do you think about podcasts?
What a waste of time. Just a bunch of people talking about stuff. What the hell?
They think they're so fucking important.
I know about something.
Opinions.
I love to hear my own voice.
This was a challenge. This was different. It was good. It was a good exercise. I mean, those guys are pro. And it's, I felt like, oh my God, it's like the 40s. And I'm listening to a serial show on the radio. But it got me into it. Desmond brought this up and I was like, 10 episodes in 10 minutes. And when am I going to listen to it? He's like, it's the same length as a movie, asshole. But I listened to it in little bits when I was exercising or whatever. And it was actually whatever. You take away the fact that it's a podcast versus a film, but the story itself had some interesting ideas about the future and about time travel. That's more than our average film. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And I've researched this. So this was done. This is originally a foreign
Portuguese
or Brazil. Yeah, we'll get into it, but the ending is a little mysterious, but apparently there's like 3 seasons of this in other countries.
Yes.
Come out with more seasons here.
Maybe. What are we doing? What's this called?
Case 63, or as it's known in other places, queso. Oh, I don't know how to say 63.
Queso cheese?
Queso 73. No, that's not right.
No, queso is cheese.
Oh, that's what it says. However you pronounce CASO. That's how it's explained.
Also, I took Italian. I'm the wrong person.
So yeah, what's your first thoughts, Ari?
I thought it was really interesting. There were some really fun concepts, a lot of scientific things. For me, I had a little bit of trouble because I wanted it to be a TV show or a movie. I wanted the visuals of it. And I found myself getting kind of frustrated, like, I don't know, with the short episodes and the ads right ahead of time and the credit. It was like the actual story of it was only like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Each episode with the intro and the ads and all that. Anyway, but that stuff aside, Ari doesn't like ads.
No, she doesn't.
I thought it was really great.
Ari, my whole goal for this show is to have ads someday. I'm sorry.
That means you've made it, right?
Exactly. If someone wants to pay me to talk about their shit, then
we're all for it. Then you'll have our support for sure. It was really interesting and a lot of stuff for us to talk about.
Yeah, and you make a good point. Like they kind of waste a lot of time. Like you would think in a podcast forum like this, like it would just be meat. But there's a lot of conversation that doesn't seem to matter. And that really bothered me until I realized it was a trilogy. Like when I first contacted you guys, it was because I kind of enjoyed it, but then that twist at the end, I was like, I gotta fucking talk to somebody about this. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to give this conversation out for free. So Scott and Ari are going to have to get on board so that I have someone to talk about this and put it out on the air. And maybe you people out there have something to talk about as well. But yeah, and like as a movie, it would like that, the visuals kind of like give you something to chew on while they're kind of wasting time with conversation that may or may not be important to the grand scheme of thing they're doing.
It'd be a low budget film, right? I mean, most of it takes place in her office.
But you could get into more of it. Like you could do the flashbacks of the relationship,
Yeah.
Although there is a twist about how the girl
yeah.
was his wife. So I guess you could.
She'd have to be blurry, like as he tells it, but they could show the future.
Yeah.
Well, and especially as you're trying to like, keep everybody really in the dark until I'm imagining season 2, I mean, I guess you could do like the flashback of the Rome trip, towards the end of it.
Yeah.
So for the folks, so K63, it's a podcast on Spotify. 10 episodes are about what, 10 minutes each?
Yeah.
And it's a therapist interviewing a person who they think is crazy, the K63, and he says he's from the future. And for the most part, most of them, the episodes take place on her recorder, on the interviews, on the therapy sessions. And we learn about him and his time travel experience throughout that. Look at that. Premise done.
Just like that. So he says he comes from January 2062. And then it's kind of interesting, too, because he gives a lot more information about the future, which we don't get very much in time travel movies. It's just like,
yeah, that's why it was cool.
This is what happened the day I left.
Yeah.
And this is what's going on the day I arrived. And everything in the middle is shit.
Yeah, a lot of concepts about, like futurism, a lot of what's going to happen in the future. Movies do that, but they'll do like one concept. They'll do just the virus, or they'll do just the information wipe, or they'll do just the
utopian,
the video game that
the
went
Mars
wrong.
thing, the Mars thing,
just the Mars thing. Yeah, but this thing had like
it's everything.
5 or 6 different huge concepts about what's going to happen in the future with, what could be its own movie in itself. And they put it all in this one, 10-minute episode for each thing. And so that's what I mean. Like you could really do a lot with this story. I hope they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a hunch that someday this would, or no, I mean, you'd have to really blow it out to make an episodic TV show about it. So yeah, probably just one long movie.
I thought it was really interesting. They bring it home to like COVID was just kind of the start of a lot of these diseases, right? And ends up wiping out a lot of the human race.
Yeah, when did this, because yeah, if this came out along, a couple years ago, like this was like released in, I'm going to keep saying Portugal. I don't know if that's right. In the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
This was released in 2020.
It seems like the type of project that would be.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he explains that basically he's from the future and the coronavirus has mutated a bunch of times until it's finally gotten really, really bad. And almost nobody is immune to it. And it's like airborne. Everything is terrible. And so he's been sent back. He is at least immune to the strand of the virus that exists now. And so that's one of the reasons why he has chosen to come back, because he doesn't have any possibility of getting sick. And he has to inject his plasma into the woman who will mutate the coronavirus into Pegasus, which is the version of the coronavirus that's just terrible.
They called her patient 0. So the coronavirus already exists, but it becomes this horrible, terrible thing.
Yeah, he talks about he's born in 2023, and he says by like 2030, he's had like 15 different vaccinations or something like that. And it's just a never ending thing. And so because of that, everyone kind of goes into hiding. So over 50 years, everyone, they hunker down. They
hide behind screens.
Yeah. And so they start going online a lot. And then eventually that leads to Wayne Chia, which is the Ready Player One version of the future that everyone's living in. And then a bunch of things happen, like basically, and then cancel culture gets out of control because everyone's online.
Oh, yeah.
So information is continuing to spread like crazy. So,
and social media decide.
This hive mind of social media people, basically becomes the law.
It was an algorithm, right? That part to me, they go so fast.
Eventually it goes algorithm. So then it gets
You get judged on social media, and that affects like your status in the world, and people kill themselves for how they're represented in social media.
the
And then,
egregore.
right, the egregore.
The egregore is what they call the basically the judge and jury that's online.
First, they start off with good intentions of canceling people that were foul,
Yeah.
racist, or whatever, and all that stuff. And then eventually they decide what is okay and what's not okay, and they become the same conservative, and it becomes like McCarthyism.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, I wrote down red panic, but I knew that wasn't right.
And so it was an algorithm. And then is that the algorithm that eventually did the data wipe?
So yeah, I think didn't the algorithm come out of the egregore well, no, I don't think so. So yeah. So I keep on getting caught up on the egregore. So the AI was developed to just go into the cloud and just delete duplicates and stuff like this, because by now the cloud is 8 gazillion terabytes big, and they just kind of want to clean it up. So they developed this AI to
Deal with the egregore, right?
No, that's
separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think these two things were separate.
Yeah, they are.
So there was one algorithm that judged you, almost like cyberbullying, and it created a lot of problems with people's world. And then at the same time, or around, I don't know when, there was a different algorithm that was created to delete duplicates that became self-aware,
It basically decided that it was supposed to delete unnecessary information, and like all scary IA, it decided that all human information was unnecessary.
So yeah, everything got wiped,
including Wayne Chia. So all these people that had been living behind screens for 20 years, now there was no technology or internet anymore, and they got thrust into the real life. And
he did say in the future they were more evolved. There was no racism or homophobia or sexism or any kind of ism, that they thought that was ridiculous concept.
but yet this other algorithm was judging people.
Well, that wasn't the egregore. Wasn't the egregore was actual humans.
Oh, okay.
They were people on Twitter saying,
It's an exaggeration of now. Yeah, it's like a Black Mirror episode.
But yet there's no racism or homophobia or xenophobia. So what were they judging people for?
No, after that. I think it was after that all went down.
Well, because like I said, it started out as like we cancel people now for being rapists and sexists and racist and assholes. But then after a while, I just decided to call Scott a racist because he pissed me off. And so now Scott can't get a job because...
Yeah, they start with the best of intentions, and then it just became the same oppressive thing they were working against.
It seemed like the writer just took every bad thing or potentially bad thing
that's
that
going
was
on
happening
now.
when he wrote this.
2020
like,
probably.
It's all going to go to shit. Even the Mars thing. Yeah, we're going to go to Mars, and then we're going to discover this ancient alien that happened to also be our ancestors. Which is a crazy concept.
There's a small part of me that believes that when we did to Mars what we are currently doing to planet Earth, and right before we were done, we launched a probe to this other planet full of whatever life we had left just to do it. Like, that's probably the least craziest thing.
This is a totally different podcast.
What?
I don't disagree that we're Martians.
I don't disagree that that's the title of your podcast. I don't disagree that we're Martians.
It was interesting because in the podcast, they talked about it being 50,000 years old.
Yeah.
The structure that they must have carbon dated was 50,000 years old. And I'm trying to sit here and think like, okay, so the oldest civilization that we have on Earth, is like Rome, Egypt, those types of places, which are only...
Is Mesopotamia before that?
Yeah, which is only like 6 to 8 or something thousand years old. I mean, obviously, we already know about evolution and people were around before then. But there is this one theory out there floating in the...
Mesopotamia, yeah.
How many years is it?
It was 4,000 to 3,500 BC.
4,000, okay. Well, isn't...
Oh, in the Sumerian culture.
Yeah, isn't the Jewish Bible at least 5,000? Anyway, there is the theory that, at what point in evolution did, this one monkey evolved just a little bit more to become humans. Like we're so much more evolved than all the other apes or monkeys or whatever it was. And so there are theories out there that some aliens came down from somewhere and did something that specifically tweaked our genes to become what we are now. And then that theory kind of like ran like wildfire. And when water was, discovered on Mars, or at least water tracks, that they're like, it came from Mars. So yeah, you could be right, Desmond.
What was the alien movie that wasn't called Alien?
Aliens, Event Horizon?
No, the one of the prequels.
Oh, Prometheus.
Prometheus,
yeah, like Prometheus
starts out that way. There's Prometheus, and I'm looking right now at speaking of algorithms, Cormac has completely destroyed my Netflix algorithm.
Oh yeah, my Spotify is ruined by my kids.
So I can't find this documentary that I watched a little bit of that's basically like trying to prove that we had some pretty evolved civilizations before the Egyptians and the Romans and maybe Sumerian. Yeah, that's driving me nuts that I can't find it.
It was an interesting concept to have him just throw that out there, that one line in this podcast.
Yeah.
But which is, like we just did. We could talk for hours about that. It's a fascinating concept, but you just threw that in there along with like 5 other fascinating concepts about what the future could be.
And you know what you need to do out there, people? Speaking of awesome concepts, is go listen to Time Pop Season 3, episode 14.5. I talk about a documentary where a real scientist comes on there and talks about how he's trying to develop time travel. And how he's trying to develop time travel is by using lasers. And by getting lasers to go in a circle really fucking fast. Because if by making light go fast, you can slow down time, then why not slow down a vortex of time in the middle of a bunch of lights?
Yeah, so the concept of how they traveled, right, in this podcast was they said gravity makes you go into the future.
No. Speed makes you go to the future. Gravity makes you go to the past.
Gravity makes you go. That's
Oh,
what it was. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that one before. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But with the lasers, the lasers are light and light speed. So wouldn't that make you go into the future?
Right, that's what he says. The speed of lasers travels you into the future. And then he didn't get into gravity of how he goes into the past, but somehow gravity is more involved. Because we can already travel into the future with light speed.
Right. But he used lasers to go into the past.
No. Well, he did, but he says the secret to going into the past is gravity.
Okay, but he used lasers to go into the past.
I think both ways, right? Yeah. But gravity is the key. They didn't get that into it.
Right, yeah, he didn't.
And it's a one-way ticket.
Well, no, when she said, "How did you travel?" he said, "Lasers."
And then later on, when she brings the guy in to talk to him and they start discussing time travel, he says, he eventually says that speed is the key to moving forward in time and gravity is the key to moving back in time.
You do the lasers either way. More speed for the future, more gravity to get to the past. It's like making a roux for your a roux of lasers.
A roux of lasers.
And it's a one-way ticket. And he was sent back, right? Because the Garnier-Maillet effect.
Yes. So that's another thing they introduced in this movie that was fucking brilliant, is that you're kind of not time traveling.
Yes, that's great. Which is, yeah. They brought that up at the end. They'd already been talking about time traveling. You're just going to a different time in an alternate dimension.
So now they're brought in alternate dimensions.
Yes.
And this actually makes more sense to me for my thoughts on time travel.
Yeah.
Like you're not actually, time goes forward and back. You're just taking a sideways bridge, cutting into another time happening at the same time.
But it's
at a different frequency.
But it's a different time in a different dimension. So it's both.
Right. He was almost saying you can't affect your own timeline. You can just change a new one.
He said you can't go back to your same timeline.
Right. I can't tell if he's trying to.
But he also says that when he time traveled, he is no longer because of his time traveling, he has now created a parallel universe. So where he came from as far as he is concerned, doesn't exist anymore and may not exist at all.
So he's not talking about Avengers effect where like when you still go to a point, it splinters off a new thing. He's like going to just a different timeline altogether.
But you've also affected that timeline also. So you go to a different timeline, and by you entering it, you have now altered it. So now that timeline is no longer on course either. You've now affected it, and maybe for a bad effect. I love the mention of parasite. I like the terms parasite and orphan timelines, because he's basically saying that, like, you know, like if they don't affect enough change in the timeline he's gone to, then he's basically come there for no reason. And he doesn't say it, but he leaves with the effect that it's just going to kind of veer off course and maybe black hole itself or something. I don't know. Because when he says orphaned and that, it makes me feel like those timelines would end somehow, or a parasite timeline. I mean, that's not good.
Yeah, I thought there were dead end timelines. I thought he talked about.
Yeah.
So, but then if he comes back to a timeline in 2023, he's born in 2022, and he's born in 2023, there will be two copies of him. They didn't go into that being okay or not okay. I'm assuming that's just the case of that timeline. He talked about at the end, I mean, this is what we heard in the last few episodes. He talks about that, like, the people you're close to in the different timelines, you have different relationships with. Like, it might be your wife in another, might be a boss in another, or in one timeline, he's the one, the time traveler, another, she was the time traveler. Interesting.
How they're cosmically linked.
Yeah, which goes into the Garnier-Millet effect, right? Where he's suggesting you're linked to a possible future in your subconscious, that you can like ask a question to yourself, and in your dreams, what you're dreaming about is actually an alternate timeline.
Well, and it seems to only key on the fact that the universe already knows you're going to travel through time.
Is it an alternate timeline or an alternate universe? Or is those the same thing?
I think they're the same thing.
I think it's the same thing. Yeah. So he would have a dream about something, and that would be a hint to his future or another timeline. And she had the same thing happen. So yeah, we haven't gone over this, but yeah. So through these series of sessions, the psychiatrist does not believe him, and then he ends up showing he knows things about her, and also that she is tied into the whole plan, that eventually she is going to help him stop the person from getting on the plane who's going to cause, major disease and issues, and the big spreader event.
And he grew up hearing the story about the doctor who called his parents, and that's the reason his parents got together.
Yeah. So now we got a grandfather paradox, right?
Yeah. Because he knew her because he'd grown up listening to his parents
talk now it's a loop, and he always had to do this.
So in the, towards the end, last few episodes, she just does the things that he said, right? She just goes to get the tattoo. She calls his parents so that they meet. She just does them because she believes him and wants to save, the future. And there's been time travel stories that we've seen where it's not a deliberate choice. It just happens.
Yeah.
And I find that a little bit more interesting, because she can still ultimately do the thing that is necessary, right? Which is inject this patient 0 with the antibody blood, but she doesn't have to get the tattoo, and she doesn't have to call the parents, but she can still do the one thing that's the most important without doing all those other steps. But if she is going through these steps, and whatever thing that the guy had mentioned just naturally seems to happen, I find that a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
And believable, and like just cooler in general when it comes to a time travel story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because there's no reason
to get that tattoo and to like shave her head. What was that about?
She was just trying to create a new identity, and
that was just great change begins with great change.
So I have a question about her husband who died. So the way that the quote unquote time traveler convinced her was he knew a quote that her dead or dying husband had said about a hat on a trip they took, right? And that convinced her, because no one else would have known this. And then later on, it was revealed that she had posted something on,
No, it's not. It was
the way that he tried to trick her was saying you had posted it. Yeah.
Yes, he convinced her that she posted it. Yeah.
But my question is, they talked about that the two of them being cosmically linked. and in different timelines, they were always kind of still known each other or been connected romantically. So who was her husband? Was that him?
We're probably going to find out.
Okay.
It was almost suggested it wasn't. They met after, but it could have been him. The way they say they trade roles. And she died, right? Yeah, he was saying in his world, she died, and the hat thing. So right, maybe it was him, but she would have remembered.
Because they have different names in different, alternate universes. Do they have different looks? Do they look different?
Did she, at 60, did she marry a 20-year-old Peter?
What?
If they were married in his timeline, he watched his wife die, aka Beatrix.
Yeah.
In the future, he's born in 2023. In 2022, she's what, 28?
Yeah.
30?
28.
So when she's 60, does she marry a 30-year-old Peter?
Yeah, so that's my
or he time traveled back and they get no, she's supposed to meet him after she does the thing in Rome, and then he time travels in these other worlds, and then they get together while they're the same age.
So he gets together as a time traveler.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Okay.
In an alternate universe where
sometimes she's the time traveler.
Where they might already exist.
Okay.
Because as soon as you travel to another timeline, there's already a duplicate of you depending on the year.
So the dead Beatrix that he lost, she traveled forward in time to meet him in 2050?
Who?
Well, I mean, that's the question, because like at the very end, when she travels to 2012, he's there. He's got a different name, but apparently he looks the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where did he come from? Does he just exist in 2012? In these different alternate universes, does he and or she exist at different times originally?
So let's get into the twist. We'll probably come back to a few points, but so he basically disappears. I don't know, like she can't get a hold of him or whatever, but
No, he doesn't disappear. He says, I gotta go. I'll meet you in Rome. Do the thing. He leaves her the message and meet me in Rome when you're done.
Oh, he does say
she's gonna fly to London.
Oh.
I think she's supposed to take the same flight that the woman was supposed to take, Marie Baker.
Well, she wasn't supposed to. The only reason she does that is because she happens to be going to visit the same person that Marie Baker is visiting. So, okay, so he's just going to Rome and he's going to meet her there. I got the sense that he kind of vanished, even though they don't mention it, but I thought she like maybe tried to get a hold of him or whatever and couldn't. But anyway, so he's just out of the picture. We don't know if he's time traveling or waiting in Rome. She decides, like we said, to do everything he said. She gets the tattoo. She calls her sister. She calls his to-be parents. She goes to the airport with his blood to inject patient 0, lures her into the bathroom, is about to give her the shot when she finds out that this woman is going to visit her sister as well. They're both going to visit Danny, Beatrix's sister.
And she's going to give her blood to her sister.
Oh, fuck, that's right.
Her plasma was special. Something's unique about her blood that was going to help her sister.
Save her sister's life, which is probably why she let her go and didn't inject her. And then all of a sudden...
her sister's going to be patient 0.
Her sister's just going to die. Everyone's going to die. She didn't prevent the...
But isn't her sister patient 0?
Her sister's going to be patient number 1.
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Maria's 0.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean...
well, everybody at the hospital is going to be patient.
Yeah, and on the flight and stuff. So she let her get on the plane, right? Her desire for her sister to live let patient 0 get on the plane, and then I assumed that some outside force made her travel.
Yeah.
And apparently when you travel, it's Terminator rules and you're naked.
That's right. That's right.
Was that what they said about him?
Yes.
Yes.
When he first arrived, he was naked in a parking lot.
You know what? Do you know what forced her to go back in time? The gravity of the situation.
Boo.
The love for her sister.
The gravity is what makes you travel back in time.
I know. I didn't know if like she fucked up this timeline, and why she traveled doesn't make sense unless the story is just taking us to another timeline. But they did say in this she disappeared.
Yeah.
I had another weird theory that like once you saw these connections, that the Marie Baker was like attached to the guy and she gave this woman a shot or something, or she sent her on her way. That they were. I was going into some conspiracy theories before they revealed more.
Yeah.
So she shows up in 2012. She doesn't remember her name. She doesn't know why she's naked or where she is. She remembers Peter, and apparently this guy looks like Peter, even though he has a different name. And she doesn't know why she's there or anything. And then it ends.
Yeah.
I know. I thought this was going to be a fully complete explain the end of the story
Yeah.
series. I didn't know it was going to be another season.
I didn't either. It was just a few things that I love the fact that all of the time travel movies exist in this world.
Oh, yeah.
They talk about the DeLorean. They talk about Terminator. They talk about all that stuff. I love that shit.
Oh, yeah. It was a great sarcastic one. You know how time travel works?
Yeah.
The flux capacitor, 3 lights in a triangle.
So it all comes down to the theories of Doc Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that. So he gets worried. So he kind of backs off on around episode 5, episode 6, because she's bringing in more and more people to talk to him, and more people are believing him to a certain extent, whether they believe him or not. But they're just like, and they start like asking him, how does time travel work? What's the machine look like? Blah, blah, blah. You know, what are tomorrow's lottery numbers? And he backs off because he knows that, like, that's when he explains the flux capacitor, because that scientist wants to know how the time machine works. And he can't give that information to this guy because that'll fuck this timeline up. Because what if this guy goes and develops the time travel before we get to Mars, and then everything's fucked up? And I like that, like, there's so many fucking consequences to time travel in this universe that are immediately addressed. And everyone's got to be careful about that. I love it.
I have issues with how he got out of that situation by impersonating some writer that already exists. So he stole his identity, apparently. He just said, I'm this person. He didn't have any ID on him.
But they could have looked up what he looks like online.
Exactly. So that's my issue, is like, these people didn't, the FBI, whoever they are, didn't look this guy up on social media and see a picture of him.
Yeah, he said, look it up. Like, I would have verified that and be like, yeah, but that's not what you look
This
like.
is not you. Where's your ID? Take me to your house. Show me your mail. Like, they let him go. I had an issue with that.
Yeah, it was a little convenient, but I think they kind of explained it away with just the like, well, if you think he's fucking crazy, then just let him go. Like, he's not hurting anybody. All he's doing is eating up resources in this hospital.
Well, he talked about kidnapping was their concern.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I think that was one thing he only mentioned to Beatrix.
But like, she could have looked him up. Somebody could have looked his alibi.
Well, she did, and she ultimately did. She didn't do it right away to, try to keep him locked up, but she eventually did research. I forgot his name. Oh, that was another cool thing they mentioned was the Jemmy Button story, which I thought was cool. Just the idea that, like, if you took an Aboriginal from the middle of nowhere who's never seen a cell phone before and brought him to New York City, that would basically be the equivalent of of a time traveler. And everybody would want to talk to him and discuss his thoughts and ideas on the situation. And I don't know, I just thought that was another great... I love that this story takes place in the quote-unquote real world, and the writer is bringing all of the real world into it. He's not just like, the coronavirus took over and technology ceased to advance, and AI, no one ever bothered to make an AI component. Like, all of these things are growing in the next 50 years, and it's a fucking lot. There's a lot here, and I like it, and I'm super excited now that I know that. Yeah, when I finished it again yesterday, I was just like, fuck, it's just over. Like, I still need to talk to someone about it, but...
Well, I'm trying to go into why time traveling is not an accident. First I was like, oh, I guess she altered the timeline, and now she's put another, like, it's a choice with laser, like something that happens. So how did she just end up, unless they're just taking us to another? But she disappeared from as far as they know.
Yeah.
Although that also could have been her hopping on the flight and being hidden in Rome and being off the grid. And now they're showing us another timeline. It just doesn't make sense otherwise. Or that the girl was on her own mission, Marie Baker, and she gave her a shot and did something to her.
Yeah, and if he goes to a different timeline, who's to say that Marie Baker is patient zero in this timeline?
Yeah. Why did he have to go away? Why could he not be there with her? Why do you have to go, I'll meet you in Rome, you got to do this?
Because I think he knew they would be waiting for him there.
Wasn't he kind of cleared?
But they still had the date.
Oh, they found out he was impersonating. The guy was looking for him.
Oh, that's right. The sci-fi
Guy
writer.
impersonator was looking for him, the sci-fi writer.
Yeah.
Maybe they look alike. We have to assume that the writer and the traveler look alike.
Yeah, it was weird too, because he said like 10 other sci-fi writers tried to do the same thing at the same time. Like that would be, you could validate that somehow.
Yeah, which they didn't.
So is this, we're talking about alternate timelines, but this is loop, right? This is loop. The idea that he travels back, which makes her call his parents, which is how they meet, which is how he's born, and he comes back. It has to, even with alternate dimensions, it has to be a loop.
It can't be a loop if it's alternate dimensions.
It has to be the way he describes it.
But maybe they always jump, maybe it's a loop within 8 timelines or something like that.
Right. Someone from a different timeline comes into yours and you go into someone else's.
Because if everyone is always still...
His time travel causes him to be born, correct? So this is
Yeah, it's
grandfather.
It's a loop. It's a grandfather, and the fact that they talked specifically about alternate dimensions is a bit as a whole.
Well, no, because you could
What
always...
if he travels to someone else's dimension, they travel to his?
But at the same time, these people exist at different times.
Yeah, and he's not consistent about who it is.
Yeah, and they never talk about two of you at the same place at the same time, which is what would have to happen. So there's holes. They're taking two concepts of time travel. They're taking loop theory, which has to exist on the same timeline, and they're taking alternate dimensions, alternate timelines.
Well, no, because I think it's possible for loop and alternate dimensions to exist in the same story, because if you're always, you can still always be doing the same thing. And if you're always jumping from timeline 3 to timeline 4, and then your person from timeline 4 is jumping at timeline 5, and then your person, and eventually you could go from timeline 6 back to timeline 2 and start the loop over again.
So that's to say that all these timelines are exactly the same.
Right. That it would make sense if he said they're exactly the same, but he did say it's different in each one. So that throws it off a little bit.
Yeah.
Somewhere that stops.
They're contradicting themselves, which is not uncommon in time travel.
No, it's not.
We always see movies where they contradict themselves with theories and concepts, of time travel, because it just makes the story more interesting to have more elements.
Maybe she's really in 2012 and all of this is like her own unconscious dream or Garnier-Mallet effect. The whole thing we're hearing is just that.
Yeah.
There's my alternate timeline loop theory.
Yeah, that means that each timeline has to be exactly the same.
Right. That's kind of like a triangle, right?
It doesn't though. It does. Oh, no, it doesn't.
Think about his parents. Think about for his parents to meet, for him to be born. Everything has to be exactly the same.
He doesn't have to exist the same in every timeline. At some point, this, as long as this person goes back to the start, these don't all have to be identical.
Yes, they do, or else that dot doesn't get made again to go back.
No, because he could...
She said sometimes she's the time traveler, but then he only gets born because she tells his parents about him for them to meet and him to get born. So if someone, then that throws all that off. And then going into the other dimensions, it throws everything off.
Yeah.
Unless you could say dimensions 1 through 12, he exists, but then there's one dimension it gets off in 13 and it doesn't happen. And then some other shit happens in dimensions 14. It might be a hole.
I think I'm going to figure this. I'm not going to figure it out right now. I'm not going to bore you guys with it anymore.
Well,
let's listen to Desmond think.
It'll be interesting to see how they reveal it or how they explain it in the next season.
Yes, absolutely. I'm really excited for the next season. She's in 2012, which means, in theory, there's 2 of her now. So, so it'll be interesting, which seems like it could be a very convenient time for her husband to die. Maybe her time traveling self.
She said she'd been a psychiatrist for 12 years. She's going 10 years in the past.
She's going to have something to do with her husband's death. Or he is.
I thought he had cancer or something. Because he lost all his hair or something.
Oh, that's right. That's why I think she's going to have some kind of, yeah. Awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, it gave a lot to chew on. It was really interesting, really well thought out. A lot of good concepts. Like you guys said, they threw everything about dystopian and utopian futures into the mix. Some good time travel. Who knew? It came out in podcast.
Yeah.
Who knew?
All of you people out there, all of you podcast listeners, check out Case 63. You know what? If you've already heard all 3 seasons of Queso 73 It's spelled CASO. I don't know. That's all I know. I think it's actually Is it Scenario 63? I don't know. Anyways, if you live in a country where you've heard the whole story, please don't spoil it with us. But we would love to hear any and all theories about season 1, where you think it's going, how excited you are for season 2. I was interested in this anyways, and then after this conversation, I am super duper excited because there is so much shit going on here, and I'm glad we're gonna have a lot more of it soon.
There it is.
Actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't know when it's gonna happen. I mean, I guess it's done. It's already written. All you got to do is get 2 movie stars in a fucking in a audio booth for 3 days, and you go bang this out.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Time. Woo! Thank you for listening to Time Pop. We hope you have enjoyed this journey through time. Please like, subscribe, and tell a friend about Time Pop. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We are time_pop_pod. Keep sending us great movie recommendations. Coming up in the year 2023, we want all of your movie recommendations. Send them to timepoppod@gmail.com. You can always send any questions or comments from this or any past episode to the same address, which is timepoppod@gmail.com. I'm not going to talk about any of my other fabulous podcasts right now. I want to talk about this fabulous podcast. Everybody, I hope you had a great holiday season.
Yay.
Happy New Year, almost. And we are going to continue our series of discussions about all the time travel. I don't know what would you call it, Scott? Our time travel
and pop culture media?
Something like that. We're going to sit down during the holiday season and we're going to hash out. So we're going to take the time travel genre and we're going to slice it into some smaller pieces of pies and get some in the loop movies and
romance, time travel love stories and loop films, the mindfuck films,
mental time travel,
consciousness,
closet time travel,
All the subgenres.
diary time travel, all of the subgenres. And then based on that discussion throughout the year, we're going to make some more lists based on those subgenres, because we are going to be the thought, Jesus Christ, where's all my words?
Thought leaders of time travel.
That's what I'm looking for. I knew you were the man, Scott. We're going to become the thought leaders in time travel. And yeah, so we're excited. Season 4 starts in 2 weeks, people. Get on board. Until next time, I am Desmond McNeese.
I'm Ariel.
And I'm Scott.
Bye.
We didn't ask us if we would travel back in time one way to save the universe.
Oh,
You've asked that before.
For this one, though.
The real question should be, if you came across somebody who told you that they were a time traveler, would you believe them and what would you do?
I would be open. Like in all these movies, it's like, yeah, he's just absolutely crazy. There's no way. Like at first, if he sounds crazy, he's crazy. But like if there's lots of stuff and evidence, like I'd be open to it if it's logical.
Yeah, as long as he wasn't homeless looking.
Yeah.
Right. I would 100% be like, I believe you. What do you need?
let's talk about it.
It's like never to them. It's like, no, it is totally impossible. Like to like, well, there is a possibility. It's like if someone says they're an alien at first, you don't. But like if you can prove some shit, maybe you are an alien. Like why be totally close to that idea that's absolutely impossible?
There's also, choosing to believe. There was some, I think I've talked about this before. There was some article years ago, the particle accelerator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That there was like something funny just appeared out of nowhere inside the particle accelerator or something. It was like a loaf of bread or something crazy. And there were all these theories. There were all these, like time travel and this, that, and the other. And I was like, yes, I believe it. I believe it all. Because I choose to believe that. Just like I choose to believe there's aliens.
Yeah.
I would believe the person.
I didn't hear about the loaf of bread. I want to know about this now. Let's talk about that. Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is that the problem is I believe scientifically somehow time travel is possible. But if I truly believe that, then where are they? There's no way people are traveling back in time and shutting their fucking mouth. There's just no way. So the one thing that keeps that, my theory, logical is that if you need to time travel inside of a machine, then you will only be able to travel back as far as the day you turn that machine on.
Yeah, which is a good theory.
So the reason we don't have time travelers yet is because no one's turned the machine on.
Or maybe they have and we just don't know. And it's just been on. And then in the future, someone will go back to that machine.
No, it's what happened is someone turned on a time machine. His double instantly came out of the time machine and destroyed it.
But older.
And immediately destroyed it because all it did was wreak havoc on the future.
Shortest time travel story ever. Once upon a time, there was a scientist who built a time machine, turned it on. Someone came through the time machine and destroyed it and died. The end.
Hey, Scott, this won't cost you a dime.
Yeah, that and a token will get me on the subway.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.
Because there is proof that at some point, I know we're getting way off course right now, and I don't care.